Thank you for taking this time this morning to come in here and to do this podcast with me. I haven't known you long. I haven't known you at all, actually. I just see you sitting down. I just see you sitting down there doing whatever you do, your work. But I want to start off, so I'm going to get to know you through this podcast. Where were you born?
I was born in Sacramento, California.
Okay. All right. And let me see. So you just lived there your whole life?
Yeah, I got on an airplane for the first time when I came to Japan about 20 years ago.
You had never been anywhere outside of Sacramento? But had you traveled outside Sacramento?
I've driven up to like Reno or Tahoe or maybe San Francisco a couple of times.
Right.
But never really lived anywhere else. Went to school the whole time, went to university.
Okay. And I'm going to get this out the way real quick because I'm sure everyone's looking at you. Just so everyone understands, this is not Tom Cruise. But it probably is him. If you live it, everyone thinks he's Tom Cruise, and he looks just like him. I mean, you get that all the time here in Japan, don't you?
Yeah, I never got it before I came here, but I came here in 2002.
Okay.
And then I just finished university. Started growing my hair out and my beard, and then end of 2003 rolled around, and Last Samurai came out, and
Right.
I had people asking for my autograph. It was
Would
really
you give it to
weird.
them?
No. I was like, no, it's not me.
Really?
Yeah, it was weird.
What would your wife think about it?
She thinks it's hilarious.
Okay, but do you have children too?
Yes, we have two.
2 kids. Okay, how old are your kids now?
Our daughter is 10. Our son is 8.
Okay. So what do they think about it? They said, Dad, Tom. Did they know who Tom Cruise was?
I don't think they know who he is now.
They don't know who he is.
Right.
They haven't seen any of his movies or anything?
They've seen, I think, a couple of the Mission Impossible movies.
Okay,
That's
all
about
right.
it.
And what did they think? Did they think, maybe?
They didn't comment on it. I think they just, they were kind of bedazzled by all the action in films, right?
Okay. All right, so back to your family. So you were raised in, you said Sacramento?
Yeah.
Okay, Sacramento. Grew up there all your life. How many brothers and sisters do you have?
I have 7 brothers and sisters.
7 brothers and sisters, of which you told me you're the second oldest.
Yes.
Your sister's the oldest,
Yeah.
and she's a year and a half
Year and a half older.
than you, and you guys are kind of close?
Yeah, I mean, we have, we chat fairly often, send pictures.
Okay.
She has 3 kids as well.
Okay. She has 3 kids as well?
Right.
But you have 2 kids?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're an uncle already?
I was an uncle when I was 17.
Because of your sister?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that says a whole lot.
She's a little bit further ahead than I am.
All right. So your mom and dad, are they doing okay?
My mother passed a few years back.
Oh, sorry to hear
Father's
that.
doing pretty well. He just retired, so he's kind of reviving some hobbies that he's had over the last few decades.
Right.
Stay busy.
Right. Now your father, you said that your mother and father got married.
He's my stepfather, but since I was about 5 years old.
So did you ever meet your father?
Briefly.
Okay.
Just a couple of times. He was busy with his motorcycle and things like that. So
I'm into motorcycles. I love motorcycles.
yeah, I had one for a few years as well. Right after I came to Tokyo, and it was great fun riding around and just sort of exploring.
What'd you have? What kind of bike did you have?
I just had an old CB400. Just
Okay, that's pretty quick. Yeah.
So, it's a good to ride around on.
Did you get your license here? Or did you get it in the States and then came here and had it changed? Oh, you never had.
Well, I have,
okay.
I got one here. I didn't have one in the States, but I got mine when I got here.
Okay, all right. Okay. So tell me, so growing up, what was it like for you growing up?
It's quite a bit further along now than it was when I was living there. It was, I think Nancy Reagan referred to it as a 2-horse town when she refused to move there after Reagan was elected governor, right? It was still kind of a small town feeling. Everything closed at like 8 p.m. on weekdays when I was growing up.
Okay.
It's had a lot of growth in the last 20 years, and if you go there now, they've revitalized the downtown area. They built a new stadium for the Kings. I think the average age is like 35 with 2 kids, something like that there now. So I go back to visit now, and I think, oh, I could live here. This is nice.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
But how big was it when you were growing up? Do you know how many people were there in town? Or?
Well, I think the city itself had around 400,000 residents, and then sort of what we call the Tri-County area, sort of the suburbs around it, was around 2 million.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a lot bigger now. I think for like 10 years it was in the top 10 fastest growing cities.
Okay. So what was growing up like? What did you do there? When you, let's say, elementary school. I'm taking you back to elementary school. What was it like?
Oh, it was, if you imagine like some movie about like any place in America where kids are going to school, right? We rode our bikes to school a few blocks, be home by dark is pretty much the rule of thumb, right?
Right.
It was pretty decent. I mean, with 7 kids, or 8 kids total, we didn't have a lot of money for going on vacation and things like that, right? But we would go out on the weekends and like drive up to the foothills and the Sierras and go to the river, things like that.
Mm-hmm. But you mentioned that you said that 3 of your brothers and sisters were adopted, or was it 2?
4.
4 of them were adopted. Wow. Okay. And your mother and father was their second marriage each. So your mother came with you and your sister, and then your father came with
2 younger sisters.
2 younger sisters. Okay. And then the other 4 you adopted. They adopted.
Yeah.
What was that like for you? I mean, to have adopted brothers and sisters, or even having the.
I mean, there's a bit of an age gap, right, between sort of the older 4 and the younger 4.
Mm-hmm.
So it was interesting, sort of going from around I think 11 years old or so, from just the 4 of us to now we have more very young siblings coming in.
Really
young
young
babies in the house and things like this, right?
Right.
So,
but you were the only boy for a while.
Yeah.
What was that like? I mean, you have your older sister, and you had 2 younger sisters who.
Oh no, it was what you might expect. I spent a bit of time playing with Dad, guy stuff, and then the other half of the time your sisters are just sort of like dressing up and putting makeup on you and play with us,
But that didn't affect you any?
I don't think so.
Okay, you're good. So every now and then your wife doesn't say, "Hey, hold on, that's my lipstick."
No, none of that.
All right, good. Okay, all right. Just curious. All right, so your younger brothers and sisters. So you basically had to help raise them.
Well, I mean, there's a little bit of changing diapers and feeding the younger ones, babysitting. Especially when I got into my teens, I became sort of a taxi driver for my parents, right?
Okay, because you got your license probably at 15. You got your learner's permit at 15 and a half.
Right.
Then your driver's license by 16.
Right.
Yeah, that's California. Yeah. So tell me, so you're in the younger 4, the 4 that were adopted. Any boys?
3.
So 3 boys and then 1 girl. Wow. Are you close with any of them? I mean,
probably my sister would be the closest.
Okay.
She's really easy to get along with.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, the brothers, 2 of them have kind of moved away. I don't really get to see them so much because I only visit maybe once every year, 18 months.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of hard to coordinate, everybody getting together at one time.
Right. What kind of sports did you get involved in when you were in school?
I didn't start doing any sports until college.
So what'd you do? So you were really academic?
I'm not sure I'd say that.
Okay,
I was a bit of a bookworm.
Were you really?
Yeah.
What kind of books did you read?
Oh, just any kind of novels. I think I started with Hardy Boys.
Okay.
And then went from there just to anything I get my hands on.
You loved reading?
Yeah. My father had woodworking is his hobby. So
okay.
I think trying to get me engaged, he helped me out build a bookshelf, and eventually I had like tiers of bookshelves running around the ceiling in my room, and my goal was to fill them up with all the books I was reading.
Wow. What were some of your favorites? Did you like adventure? Did you like mystery? Did you like...
I think some of the ones I read the most were probably like classics, like some of the Mark Twain stuff.
Okay. Wow. Did you ever read Kitchen and Rye?
I did.
Yeah. My brother gave me that book once, but I didn't have any luck with it. I didn't get through anything. I just had the book.
I think it took me my second attempt to get through it. I got through it like halfway at one point and thought, I'm not sure what's going on here with this kid.
Right. Wow. Okay. So after that, not until you got into college did you get into sports. You didn't know. You had to do regular PE, of course, and do other stuff the schools required.
Right. Yeah. But I think once I got into college, I was trying to get in shape a bit. So I started jogging a bit. I tried out for the rowing club. I did that for like a season and a half before I realized that getting up at 4:30 and going to exercise and getting to calculus at 7:45 in the morning and dozing off wasn't really going to help my GPA. Right?
Mm-hmm. That was the only thing you did was rowing? You didn't stay in sports at all?
No, I didn't.
So how do you stay fit now? Would you just work out?
Yeah, I try to hit the gym once a day.
Okay.
I think when I first came to Japan, one of my managers, we had this company directory, and I saw the picture, and then I saw him, and I did a double take, and this guy had clearly lost at least 100 pounds.
He was huge before.
He was
Okay.
a very
Big guy.
Yeah. And then you see him in person, and he's just in great shape. And said, "Well, how'd you do?" And he said, "It's like anything else. If you want to be successful at it, you have to practice good time management. You have to make an hour a day to go to the gym and exercise. You're not going to find it." And so
was that when you came here, or when you?
Yeah, that was about a year after I arrived here.
After you came here, so you met a manager. This was a foreigner.
Yeah, he was from Australia.
Okay,
actually.
okay, Australia. Well, were you big or something before?
Yeah, I was probably. Picture me with maybe 10 pounds less muscle and 40 pounds more fat, something like that.
Really? So you're kind of big.
I was a bit heavier as a child.
Okay.
I think it wasn't until I was around 23 or 4 that I started, exercising regularly, eating a little healthier.
Okay.
And the weight just kind of peeled off over a few years.
In college, what were your subjects?
I figured out that there was this test that make all the graduating seniors in California take, and if you pass the test with at least a median grade, like in the top 50% of the previous year's graduating scores, then the state will issue you a high school diploma that every university has to accept.
At 14?
Yeah, so that was my grand plan to get out of homeschooling. I spent the summer studying for this test.
All right.
So I got into college. I had no idea you had to declare a major or something like this.
Right.
So I spent like the first 2 years in college just taking any random class that sounded cool. Like I took a few geology classes, a few biology classes, things like this. And it was great fun until the counselor's office called me and said, we need to talk about a major. I said, well, what's a major?
What would your father think about all this? Because of course he did. What college did you go to? Which university?
Sacramento State.
Sacramento State, okay. So did your father, he had to pay for this, right?
No, so because I was still under 18, there was another program that I took, like the ACT test or something like that, and I scored high enough that basically it was $5 a year, or $5 a semester tuition. And then the books were a bit more expensive than ever.
Right.
So I just had a part-time job to pay for books and things like that.
At age 14, wow. Okay, so anyway, so you go to school for 2 years, and the counselor calls you in.
It's basically start over from scratch, because all you've done is take a few general ed classes and a bunch of stuff that's not applicable to any kind of thing.
Okay. And then what happened?
Well, I kind of, I got into computer science, and then I think probably a year and a half later, I got a job at a software company as an intern, more or less, sort of low-paid generalist. And then graduated, and
after 2 more years?
No, it was like another 4 years, right?
Another 4 years. So I mean, you graduated when you were 20?
Just after I turned 21.
You just turned 21, okay. All right, so go on, so you took those other classes.
Right, and then...
so you graduated, what was your major?
I ended up graduating with an Asian Studies degree. So I was working at this software company, and they really wanted me to go full-time, but they weren't willing to pay like a reasonable wage because I didn't fit on the HR's matrix.
Okay.
I didn't have a degree yet, right?
Right, okay.
And so they more or less said, what's the fastest thing you can graduate with? And I had already taken like 3 years of Japanese and a couple of World Civ classes and some like Eastern philosophy classes. And so I said, oh, well, I can get a Asian Studies degree in like 6 months.
Okay.
And they said, okay, we'll pay you what you want then.
And then, so you got your degree, they paid you what you wanted. What did you do? What kind of company was it? Software company, you said?
Software company, yeah.
Okay. Based in Sacramento?
Yeah.
All right, so how long did you work with them?
I worked there for probably 3.5 years.
Okay, so that made you 24.
Oh, no, I was probably all in. I started when I was around 19.
Okay.
Maybe 18.
Oh, so your last year, so your last 2 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I graduated, and the dot-com bubble was right around that time.
Right.
And it turned out the CEO had been doing some Enron-style accounting practices. And then I got a call like 3 months after graduating from my Japanese professor.
Okay.
And he says, hey, my old senpai is working for the Board of Education out in Kanagawa. And they're looking for basically like JET program people.
Right.
And I thought, okay, well, maybe I'll just ride this recession out, go practice my Japanese for a year and come back. And then I got to Japan. I stepped off the plane and I felt like I was in a sauna.
Okay.
It was end of May. I think it was like 33 Celsius and 80% humidity or something like this.
Right.
Honestly, that's something I still haven't gotten used to.
Right.
But no, yeah, the first thing I noticed was like the lush greenery as we're driving. I think it's just because California is kind of dry. You know, the greenery that we have tends to be like evergreen pines, a little bit kind of ashy.
Right. Brownery.
Right,
It's really brownery.
Yeah. But it was just sort of wow, these sort of almost like subtropical, like lush looking greenery everywhere.
Okay. What about the people? I mean, because you stand. How tall are you?
I'm 5'11", so about 182 centimeters.
Okay, right. So you came here. That had to be a big difference too.
You know, it was, especially almost 20 years ago.
Right.
Like the younger people these days are a bit taller than they
Aren't
were
they getting
20 years
tall?
ago.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
That's true.
So when I first came here, I would step into a train car, and there might be another person as tall as me. Right.
You could look all the way through over everyone's head. Right.
Yeah, it was definitely weird because I'm not a big person where I come from.
Right, but you felt big here.
Yeah.
That had to change everything. But you weren't married. You weren't married at all when you came here.
No.
Okay. Didn't even know your wife.
No, I didn't meet my wife for a couple of years after that.
Okay. All right. So anyway, so you come here. You go to your office. What did you notice then? They show you where you were going to live first?
I went to the office first, actually, and then they showed me where I was going to live afterwards, which was fortunately only a few minutes walk, so I didn't get lost easily.
Right.
And it was a city. She actually showed the city office, right? The board education section, right? So it was sort of walking into this government bureaucracy right off the plane. I'm not sure that teaching junior high school students is what I'm cut out to be.
And that's what you were doing?
Yeah.
Teaching them English?
Yeah.
And what was it like? What happened?
Well, you get in there and sort of work with the teachers to come up with a lesson plan. Try to work with the kids, try to keep it fun. I think from my perspective, working in IT, in a software company, just sort of being able to tune out and focus on some problems, write some code, was a lot easier for me than trying to work with 35 kids whose attention, I'm supposed to be keeping.
Right. Was it all boys school, all girls school? Was it mixed?
It's a normal public junior high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Were the kids rowdy at all? Or did it become that way?
There were a few kids who were definitely rowdy. I mean, there's a lot of differences between culture in Japan and America, but 15-year-olds are 15-year-olds, right?
Right.
Sometimes I'd be out walking up to the school, and there's some kids, behind the backstop of the baseball field drinking chu-hais or something, right?
Right, and
what
smoking.
Are you doing?
Yeah, right.
But on the other hand, there were a couple of kids who I saw once or twice in the entire year I was there. Like one kid just showed up to pick up his diploma at the end, and I said, "Who are you?" And they're like, "Oh well, his mother passed away. His father has a hard job. We just sort of let him slide, right?" But, okay.
Wow.
I managed to find a job at a Fortune 100 company here in Tokyo, working in the IT department.
Okay.
So I worked there for probably 2.5 years.
Right. But they hired you as a local hire, or did they?
Yes, they did.
Okay. So that meant the pay was a lot less. You didn't get housing. Did you get housing?
No, it was not an expat package at all.
It wasn't
simply a local hire.
Okay. So where'd you live then?
I lived in Okubo.
Okubo, okay.
Okubo, yeah.
Okay. And what was that like?
Interesting walk home from the office at night.
Okay.
It's Koreatown, right? And sort of I was working in West Shinjuku, Nishi Shinjuku, so I would more or less have to skirt Kabukicho to get home.
Right.
So it's just sort of, first of all, Kabukicho's a mess, and then you get to, Koreatown, and back then there was just a lot of college students doing gap year and things like that.
Right.
So I was 22, 23 at the time, so it was fine.
Okay.
And then I think I lived there for 6-7 years.
Working with this IT company?
I worked for that company for 2.5 years, and then the Tokyo Stock Exchange moved to a new data center, and all the banks scrambled to move their systems to the same data center to maintain sort of low latency, high speed trading, that kind of thing.
Okay.
So there was this huge shortage of IT people at the time, and so I had an ex-colleague contact me and say, "Hey, we're looking for somebody. The pay's like 30% higher than we were getting back there. Why don't you come join us?"
Right.
So I moved from there to Citibank for a year and a half.
Right. What year was this? What year are you talking about now?
End of 2006, I guess.
2006,
Yeah.
okay. So you went to Citibank. How long did you stay with Citibank?
It was a little over a year. It was a project. We had to move the servers to the new data center, and at the same time, I think we were moving their offices from Akasaka Park building to the Shin Marunouchi building.
Right. But so when you say you're not talking about physically, you mean you did all the IT work, downloading all this. What'd you do? How'd you move?
So a lot of my work at the time was they had this joint venture with Nico Cordial.
Okay.
They bought out Solomon Smith Barney.
Okay.
And then
Because they went under.
yeah, they went under. Citigroup did the whole rescue thing, right?
Right.
And so there were a couple of, they were trying to extract their securities business from Nico. And at the same time, there were a few things that didn't make sense to them. So a lot of my projects were spinning out small hedge funds from that investment business. So I would have to go set up like new offices, get the Bloomberg lines running, get them all BlackBerry set up.
How'd you learn all this?
On the fly.
Really? On the job training, basically. Somebody would come in and show you this is what you need to do, and you went through it. You loved IT anyway.
Well, I mean, it's just it's a problem to be solved, right? And then once you get introduced to sort of everyone in the IT department, you can have an idea where to start asking questions, and then eventually find your way to somebody who can configure what you want done for you, right? So that was more or less the job.
And did you enjoy it?
Yeah, it was a much faster paced, higher stress environment than what I'd been used to.
Right.
Everyone.
Because you came from that. Where'd you come from to do that? You were working with an IT company, but they were doing.
So it was sort of internal IT support for this big company called Cisco Systems.
Okay, so
joining the club has been like really kind of eye opening for in terms of community, right? My wife and I dated for like 6 years.
Wait, is your wife Japanese?
She's Korean, actually.
She's Korean.
Yeah.
So
when I was doing that jet program thing,
okay.
My roommate was an Australian guy who double majored in Japanese and Korean, and he had spent some time in Korea, and so he had a taste for Korean food. So we'd go out for Korean for dinner every once in a while. And
you said, "Hey, this is
great." Yeah.
Yeah, especially the kimchi. Oh, yeah. Good kimchi. There's nothing that can beat it.
Yeah.
I love that. But you know all the other stuff too, yeah.
Oh yeah. Especially like in winter, like those nice hot spicy stew.
Yes. So you met her where? Where'd you meet your wife?
At a cafe, actually. I grabbed my Japanese study books on I think it was Golden Week in 2004, and went up to the cafe and ended up sitting next to this young lady who was studying something as well. So ended up striking up a conversation, and then here we are, 17 years later.
But you've been married how many years now?
Almost 11.
11 years.
Yeah.
And you have how many kids?
2.
2 kids, and they're pretty old, yeah.
Yeah.
So the oldest is 11.
10.
10.
Yeah.
And then it's a girl.
She, yeah.
And the second is?
He is a boy, he's 8.
8 years old, okay. Where do you have them at school?
We have them over at Nanzan, near Roppongi Hills. It's a public school.
Okay.
So we don't speak any Japanese at home.
Right.
But what we found was that because we had our kids at the public daycare, the Hoikumen, they picked up Japanese fluently with no help from us whatsoever, right?
Right.
So our thought is to keep them in the public schools.
But they speak to you and your wife, and they're doing well. That's all they know. So wow.
Yeah, so we do like English only at home. They get 7-8 hours of Japanese at school every day.
And they're doing good, reading, writing, everything.
They're a little bit behind on the Kokugo because we don't use it quite as much. Like
Right.
there's some vocabulary that they find they're missing just because they don't do as much home life in Japanese.
Right.
But we've got them in Kumon to catch up a bit. So
do they like the club too?
Oh, they love it. They love it. We moved to this area we used to live near like Sangobashi, Hatsudai. And when it came time for the kids to start elementary school, we decided to move over here because my wife had heard a lot of good things about the schools in Minato area. And then we found that, halfway between the new apartment and my office is the club, and it's also only a 10-minute walk from the kids' school. It was a real easy choice to sort of join, and then now my weekends are free. I'm not taking the kids to swimming and ballet and soccer on the weekends. They can do it all after school, right? We lived over in Shibuya-ku, and we could not get the kids in the same daycare. It was too crowded. But my wife and I both work in Minato-ku, so we were able to get the kids in the daycare over here. So once we moved over here, we started running into all their friends from daycare, and it turns out a lot of their
right.
yeah, and a lot of their classmates are actually members of the club as well. So it just, like I said, community, a real sense of community.
That's something. Yes. What does your wife do? What kind of work does she do?
She works for this sort of edutech startup. They do like some application that helps kids with studying math and things like that. So it's a Korean-based company. They're now trying to get into the Japan market.
Do you speak any Korean?
I can ask for beer or to find the toilet, and that's about it.
So when you met your wife, she already spoke some English?
Yes, actually. So she studied English in high school and college. She actually had like a 960 something on the TOEIC, right? So she, book studying, right? She never really talked to many people, but after a couple of years of dating, her English is perfectly fluent now.
Wow. And you dated for how many years again?
About 6 years.
6 years. During that time you dated, you were still working with the company. You said, who were you working with when you were transferring the stuff for 1 year?
Oh, I did. That was Citigroup.
Citigroup. And then after them, what happened? Where'd you go from there?
From there, I went to the place I'm at now. I've been here for like 13 plus years, I guess.
Okay.
It's called Asurion.
Who owns the company, Asurion?
I think it was started by a couple of brothers named Tawil. Yeah, they
from the States?
From the States, yeah. It's actually based in Nashville.
Okay.
So I interviewed for this place around the same time the government changed the laws around subsidizing cell phone handsets.
Okay.
So it used to be you could go into any shop and just get a new phone for each yen, right?
Right.
And then there was a lot of complaints that all the trendy kids in Shibuya are driving up the monthly plan prices by switching phones every 6 months, right? So the government put a hold on that, and overnight, a new phone went from 1 yen to like, yomane, right? And so I'm like a few months before the law went into effect, I'm interviewing with these people, and they told me their business model, which is more or less cell phone insurance. And I thought, wow, you guys are going to get big here really fast, because overnight everyone is going to want insurance on their $400 cell phone, right? So I joined right around the time they signed a deal with the largest mobile carrier in Japan. And then it was just explosive growth for a few years. And then, started branching out into different things besides cell phone insurance. We do all sorts of things like support for customers that do have other services with providers.
You've been with them on the whole ride.
Yeah.
So what's your position with the company?
I am director of IT for infrastructure. So I run the project management office and the solutions engineering for basically anything new that we're doing, any new IT solution that requires something in the data center, something on the network. I've got the team that's doing the designing and implementation of it.
How many employees do you have now with this company?
With this company, about a dozen, I think.
That's all?
I'm sorry, in my team.
That's your team, but what about the company as a whole? What did they start off with? Do you know what they started off with?
I was employee number 55, and there weren't. I was the fourth person in IT.
Okay. How big are they now?
I think in Japan now we're probably around 700 employees, I guess.
Wow.
800. I think globally we've grown. I think we had 4,000 or 5,000 people globally when I joined, and it's like 20,000 now.
That had to be a good ride for you.
It has been challenging and fun. The rate of growth has just kept us all really busy and engaged. No time to think about, do I want to do something else?
Right. Are you able to work from home most of the time, or do you have to? Because I see you here a lot. I'm sure you're doing stuff online.
Oh yeah. So I work mostly remotely right now, simply because our HR has taken a pretty progressive stance on the coronavirus situation. They basically said until the government takes away all the safety measures, do not come to the office unless you absolutely must.
Gotcha.
So I try to go in maybe once a week, something like that, just to check on the team, make sure people are, respecting boundaries.
Right.
It's you let everyone off of supervision for a while. And
that's true. When the cat's away.
Yeah.
So tell me this. So what do you see for the foreseeable future with the company? Do you think you're going to be with them for a while, or do you?
Yeah, I do. We've been really lucky. Some of our clients have come to us over the last year and a half or so and asked us to do new things for them. So I don't have a line of sight to not being busy here right now. So lots of new stuff going on.
What about going back to the States ever? Do you ever see yourself doing that?
Maybe. I think it's really kind of a blessing for us to be here in a situation where we can raise our kids to be bilingual. The recent studies that universities have done have shown so much benefit for people, like cognitively, mentally, for being bilingual. So we'd like to stay here at least until the kids are maybe 11, 12 years old.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it'll be hard for them to lose the bilingual ability after that point.
Mm-hmm.
But in our minds, we're thinking we'd like to send the kids to university in America. So I think what that means is, either at some point around junior high school, we're going to have to send them back to school or take them back,
Mm-hmm.
or move them to like an international school that has curriculum more geared towards the U.S. university system.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Have you thought of any of the schools here in Japan?
I mean, the one that sticks out the most, I think, is probably the American school.
The American school.
They've got all the AP courses and things like that that can help burnish your child's college resume.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But
That's
yeah,
true.
so we still got a couple of years, I think.
Right. That's true. So that's what you have planned for yourself. Anything you'd like to end with, or anything that you're doing? How would you like to end the podcast? Anything?
Probably by thanking you for having me on here. Like I said, we've been members for about 2.5 years.
Right.
And I guess our engagement with the club has mostly been centered around our children
Mm-hmm.
and the family side.
Mm-hmm.
And it hasn't, we haven't really, with this COVID situation starting right after we joined, it hasn't been easy to sort of kind of make connections with other people as easy as I thought it would be in
Mm-hmm.
a social club like this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, thank you for, stopping by and introducing yourself and inviting me on here.
Yeah, no problem. I really enjoyed it. And I saw you there all the time, and I said, look, this guy's sitting here, he seemed to be a really friendly guy, but it doesn't look like he knows anybody.
No, yeah. I mean, having children can be so consuming for time.
To me, it is, right? You don't really want to make other friends right now because you're going to have to be with your kids eventually.
Sure.
So it's kind of hard. But you do want to get to know other people that have kids around your age so you can socialize. Thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it. I want all of you to make sure that you press like, subscribe, and never forget, it's all unknown. Keep reaching for the stars, and you're too blessed to be stressed.